Hi, welcome everyone that's tuning in or those that are watching after the fact. Today we have Evelyn Knight with us. Say hi, Evelyn.
Hello.
Evelyn believes all children deserve love that some of them may not be receiving in our society today. She's on a mission to change the world by providing that love to our youngest children. She believes this is achieved through the child care centers that she owns and child care professionals, which is a company that helps centers achieve business success with an emphasis on nurturing high quality research based standards. Her educational background is in neuropsychology and early childhood education. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you.
I love watching your short little videos. They always have just enough information that you'll stay and listen to the whole thing, and you always present them so well and easily for people to grasp something from it. So thank you for those.
Thank you.
All right. So just this isn't one of the questions, but how many centers do you have now?
Well, currently, I'm actually at one center. I actually did sell a couple in the past. So right now I'm at one and I'm trying to open a couple more.
Okay. Well, if you ever need any music for those centers, I'm your girl.
Well, thank you. Good to know.
Okay. So are there a lot of teachers you come across who are unsure of their abilities? How so? And why do you think this is?
Well, there's a thing that's called imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And so many of us, and most people actually have this and aren't even aware that it exists. And yes, with teachers, I see it all the time, especially in early childhood education, because the requirements for the level of education aren't quite there. And even if they are there, I mean, even school teachers that are K through 12, they also really, really struggle with thinking they're just not enough. And a lot of times, if we can't solve every single problem or if something goes wrong, it gives us this imposter syndrome. And in the back of my mind, we're constantly asking ourselves, what is wrong with me? I'm not qualified for this. I'm not good enough. And we have these voices in our heads. So, yes, I see it all the time. Very common.
I know I went to listen to someone that spoke on the topic of imposter syndrome last year, and it seems to be more prevalent in females.
Yes.
Where if a male and a female are showing up for a position and you ask them if they have a skill, a female will think about it and say, no, I don't have that. Where a man would go, yeah, and would go and learn it rather than admit he didn't know it. So
and we don't even know we have it sometimes. Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And do you think part of this is the education system? Like when we teach children, we leave out a lot with nurturing belief in oneself, but we're also doing this with teachers.
Yes.
We're giving them the tools of this is how you set up the day. These are the concepts you're supposed to teach, but we don't teach that.
Yes, and what we really need to look at is early childhood education for this, because the teachers of today, all of us were once young children. And this is part of the reason early childhood is so important. Our executive brain functions are formed in the first 5 years of life.
Right.
So how you see yourself, how you believe in yourself, how you show up in a room, how you cope, or how you time manage, all of that was actually formed in the first 5 years of life. So what happens, and especially to women in our culture, is that we're told all these stories when we're young, and all these expectations are put on us, and we become those expectations. We believe those stories. So that's what actually forms our subconscious mind. And it's important to understand that your subconscious mind is making 97% of the decisions in your life, and you don't even know it. 97% of the decisions you make every single day You're not even aware of.
That's a high percentage, Evelyn.
Yes. And so that's where the imposter syndrome comes from. We here as young children, especially as women, it's what we see in the world, right? And especially for us that are in the older generation, I think the younger ladies are doing a little bit better on this. But it's a man's world to a certain extent. And we see what they illustrate, a man in a suit and all of those things, and the woman at home. It's gotten a lot better, but I know when I was a child, that was what was told of us. And it's just how people treat girls different than boys when you're young. So in our minds, we grow up in our subconscious mind with the self doubt. So really, the key is to question the self doubt and to really start analyzing your thoughts and to pay attention to the chatter in your head and start asking yourself, is this even true? Because so often we just don't even pay attention to what we're thinking, which is what leads to the imposter syndrome. And where, like you said, a woman might be in a job interview and they might ask something like, have you ever ran finances? Well, a woman might run her household finances, which can be pretty intricate. They're budgeting for the groceries,
Right.
they're budgeting for all of the children's sports activities. It is intricate, but they automatically jump to, well, no, I don't know how to do this.
Unfortunately. I don't know what just happened there. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
Excuse
Yes.
me.
So, yes, there's a lot of the cultural conditioning that has led women to have more self doubt. But I do think that is something that we're getting a lot better at.
I do. My daughter and I were discussing this a lot this weekend as she had gone to see the Barbie movie. And we were just talking about what an impact what was seeming to be such a benign movie, just fluff, is actually turning out to be one of the number one conversation pieces right now. And we are changing a lot, but there's a lot more to go. But the imposter syndrome actually spills over to everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The teacher, the director, the parents.
Yep.
And then in essence, then we give it to the children.
Yes, exactly. Yes, we're teaching that conditioning.
And so how does this distrust in oneself spill over to the children?
Well, the children are looking to us as adults for their confidence. So, an example is, let's say a child is getting dropped off at preschool by their mother and or their father, either one. And children are constantly reading our cues, right? So this child is getting dropped off, and the parent is really scared and nervous. And especially for moms, we see this a lot, especially like the first time. Let's just paint a picture of a mom who has been a stay at home mom for the first 3 years. And now, for the first time, she's dropping her child off at preschool. Well, that mom is going to be sad. She is going to be scared. And there's a lot there, so many emotions at once, right? But the problem is, as she's dropping off and as she's walking away, her child is seeing the distress on their face. And if unless the mother explains exactly what's happening inside of her, that child is creating stories. We all do this, by the way. Every human does this. We take the information around us in, and it's limited information, but we construct stories based on that information and we believe it is truth. Well, the child sees mom upset and lacking the confidence and lacking that, just the excitement. So they automatically think, what's wrong? Something's got to be wrong. Mom doesn't trust the people around. I need to distrust the people around. And so now you've got this formula of the child being scared and nervous and distrusting, and then the parent doesn't even realize that they just did this. So it's the same thing with imposter syndrome. A lot of times also parents are voicing things to children without even realizing it, right? Like a child, I was put in piano lessons since I was 4 years old. I was trained to be a concert pianist, and my mother would actually say to me, "Are you sure you're ready for this? Are you sure you're ready? And I know she was well-meaning, wanted to make sure I was okay, but that sent me the message as a child that I wasn't ready, and it gave me self-doubt. So a lot of times we put that self-doubt on children, and as we grow up, it makes us constantly question our ability, and then we get this imposter syndrome.
That's pretty frustrating when you think about it, what we keep passing on to children. Can we go too far? Like build them up too much to where they have too much bravado? And what's that medium so that the child believes in themselves without believing they're better than everybody else?
Right. I think we're living in that world today, actually. As an employer myself, and one of the biggest things I see as a business coach is the workforce right now is very hard to manage. Very, very hard to manage. And if you look at the world around us, and I've done a lot of research on Simon Sinek is one of the best at explaining this. But when I really started trying to figure out, okay, what is going on? Why is it so hard to get people to show up for work, be on time, and when they're there, do their job? It's so much harder than it was 5 or 6 years ago. And part of that is because exactly what you said. We never held them accountable. So you're absolutely right. There's this fine line that can make things difficult for us, right? And the best way I describe this to parents is imagine that you won a trip to New Zealand, right? It's beautiful beaches and just gorgeous atmosphere. And they tell you you have a trip that's right on the ocean and you're on the 13th floor. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to get these amazing ocean views and I'm going to see the sunset and all these things, right? Now imagine you get to that hotel and you go into your hotel room and you're super excited to see the view and you open the curtains up, walk out onto the deck, and there's no railing. There's no rail.
Oh, wow.
We're automatically going to be like, oh, we're going to pull back and we're not going to want to walk out there to see that gorgeous view, right? So now imagine the opposite scenario. Imagine same thing. You open your curtains, walk out, and there's a 10-foot wall. And you can hear the sounds, you can see, you can hear, you can smell the ocean, you can feel the moisture in the air, but you only see a 10-foot wall. So it's the same thing with raising our children. If we go too far in the praising and the discipline, it's like that 10-foot wall, right? And we make them just shrink and come back. But if we don't give them enough guidance and enough of that self-questioning and self-discipline, then it's like that. It's like the balcony with no wall at all, with nothing, where you feel unsafe of the world, and then the world feels very, very unsafe. And that's where we are seeing a lot of anxiety problem in young people now, the rates of depression. So much of that has just skyrocketed because we have been the parents, and I'm one of them. I raised children in this generation, but we haven't given them that proper balance of freedom, that autonomy, and discipline. So that's pretty much the easiest way I can think of explaining it for people, teachers or parents, to think about when you're really trying to regulate your children.
Yes, that was a really good analogy. Thank you. I like that. So if sometimes it shows up like in the different classrooms, the teacher that believes in herself and is confident and is not doubting and all the time going, oh, what was I going to do next? Oh, let's do this. Oh, no, I changed my mind. There different personalities come out of that room than the teacher that just like, well, let's do this. This is what we're going to do, and has clear cut belief in herself or himself and what they're going to do. And then the children pick up on that. Yes. Some people think that that's a lot of stress for them. Oh, that's a lot of responsibility for me. Well, yeah, it is. And being a parent or being a teacher, that's part of it.
Right.
So there are people that are uncomfortable with that confidence. But we don't want to tell them, don't be a teacher anymore then if you can't hack it. Well, right? I mean, you don't want to quench their dream, but
Right.
you want to help steer them into developing that. What are some strategies?
So what really you need to do is just start questioning yourself. Start asking yourself, is this true? Because what I've seen is the teachers who do have some pretty tough imposter syndrome, what ends up happening is either they try too hard, right? And they have to be everything and do everything for everyone because they constantly feel like they have something to prove. And then they
Mm,
burn out. They're exhausted, they burn out, they become bitter, they become angry, and they blame everybody around them for the difficulty of their job. Or we see the opposite, where kind of like what you described, where they lack the confidence to the point that they're constantly second guessing themselves. They're crippled with self doubt, so they don't take action, or they're constantly changing their mind, right? And so things aren't actually happening. And then that gets interpreted as, oh, that person's just lazy. They don't want to do their job. When in reality, the person's just struck by fear. So, what I would really encourage everybody to do, and this is something I have to do myself because I had some crippling imposter syndrome. And I still struggle with it. I've done TED Talks. I've done a couple TED Talks. I own two thriving companies. I have a
mhm.
podcast, and I still, when I tell people I have a pretty bad imposter syndrome, they're like, no way. But I do. I really do. So Katie Byron developed these questions that I live by all the time and have helped. They have really been a game changer for me. And there's 4 questions that you ask yourself. The first one is it true? Is the story I'm telling myself in my mind true? So for example, if you're a teacher who has that self-doubt and you start thinking to yourself, I know I wrote this lesson plan and at the time I thought it was great, but now it just looks awful. Instead of throwing it out, just ask yourself, is it true? The second question is, can I absolutely know for sure, without a doubt, it is true? The third question is, how do I react? What happens when I believe this is true? So when I have these thought patterns, how do I start acting? And then the fourth question is, who would I be and how would I show up without these thoughts? And I
Mm,
think that last one is key. It is
yes.
absolutely key because as you keep asking yourself that last question, who would I be? And how would things turn out if I didn't have this thought? What that does is it actually is going to go into your subconscious. And that's where you can really start reconditioning your subconscious. But it takes consistency over time. So it's funny, I'm sitting here at my desk and I actually keep Katie Byron's 4 questions usually taped to my monitor. I keep them around me on a little 3x5 card because I have to constantly ask myself those questions. So I keep them close by. Just even though I have them pretty much memorized, I still keep them close by because sometimes when I'm in that period of self doubt, I'll see this nice bright green card taped to my monitor, and I remind myself, wait, stop, ask yourself the questions.
Is it true?
Yes. Is it, and sometimes when we ask ourselves, is it true? Well, yes, it's true, which is why the second question comes in that can you absolutely be certain it is true? Because
Right.
that's kind of like, no, there's no evidence that it's true, right? And
Mhm.
that's another thing too is look for evidence in your life, right? When you start telling yourself, I'm not cut out for this, you're allowing that one moment in your life to make you feel like you're not good enough for something, right?
Mhm.
So when you get stuck in those moments, look for other evidence that contradicts what you're thinking. Like a teacher who's in a classroom and they're dealing with some tough behavior issues, right? A lot of times those teachers are the ones who really just like, why can't I stop this? There's so much blame that they put on themselves. Why am I not a good enough teacher? Why don't I know how to do this? I should know how to do this by now. I've been doing this for so long. I should have the answers. I shouldn't be. So when you're having those thoughts, bless you, when you're having those thoughts, ask yourself, that you were a great teacher. Just stop yourself and say, okay, when was the last, is this really true, right? You're going through Katie Byron's questions. And then ask yourself and look at times that contradict what you're thinking. Because I guarantee you, you will find times that you were a wonderful teacher, but you're allowing that one incident that you're in right now to form your entire opinion of who you are. And unfortunately, that's the one that sticks. And you go day by day thinking those
Mhm.
negative thoughts.
Mhm. Well, let's just look at the title of this for a moment. Belief in yourself transfers to belief in the children.
Yes.
So if someone does not believe in themselves, is it then it's so that they don't really believe in
Mhm.
the children, because if I can't do it, why do I think they're going to be able to do it?
Right.
And that's dangerous.
It is dangerous, and everything really comes down to we're trying to keep ourselves safe. If you look at our brains from just a very raw perspective,
Right.
we are just trying to keep ourselves safe, where imposter syndrome comes in, right? Your brain is just like, whoa, stop, you're not safe. You can't do this. It isn't safe. So you're transferring that to the children by saying the same thing in your mind. Subconsciously, you're looking at what they're doing and you're stopping them from taking risks, trying new things, trying on their own, right? And it's you having a safety issue, right? You see them as not safe. And this can be as simple as them doing an art project. I teach a course to parents. Actually, I used to teach it on how to find good quality childcare programs. And one of the things I teach them is what should artwork look like? And I
Mhm.
always tell them, if you have a 2-year-old and your 2-year-old has their eyeballs on, they made a lion and the eyeballs are where they belong and they have a nose and a mouth, your 2-year-old didn't do that art. Someone did it for them. And
Uh-huh.
now, if you have a cyclops and the eyes are here, the mouth is here, that is free art where you know the child really did it, right?
Right, exactly.
Why do teachers feel the need to correct a child's artwork? It's because they have a feeling of being unsafe themselves. It's because they look at it and either they think the parents are going to judge them, the parents are going to get
Mhm.
angry that they're not doing their job, or they're afraid the child is going to be made fun of, the child is going to be treated differently. So they swoop in and save either themselves or the child by correcting the artwork. But that is not what's best for the children. And
No.
that's where that imposter syndrome and lack of self confidence comes in, because you've got these fears in the back of your mind that are really controlling you.
Yeah. That's pretty sad. That happens, I think, a lot more frequently in the past. I think a lot of people have become more aware of that and are letting go of some of those old-fashioned viewpoints. I mean, I stepped in and subbed for a teacher one day that had to leave, and I mean, the kids all knew me as a music teacher, and there was an art project, and this teacher gave them all pre-cut out stuff,
Yes.
a picture to follow, and I just took all the stuff and just threw it on the floor. And they said, "What?" I go, "Make a flower." And they go, but like how? I go, "I don't know. It's your flower. It's not
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?" And they just, the majority of the children were like, "All right,"
This
you
is
know.
amazing.
That there was one little child that actually sat there rocking, going, "How do I know what to do? They don't show me what to do." And
Mhm.
that's sad when a 4 or 5 year old is doing that already.
Yep.
Um, that we have to give them the confidence that you can do it, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's.
Yeah.
It's yours.
It's yours. And that is the perfect example of how imposter syndrome is formed. We have that 4-year-old who is they didn't have the confidence to make a flower themselves because
Right.
everybody has told them how to do everything, right? And then
Yeah.
you wonder why, when you see that 4-year-old fast forward 20 years, we wonder why we have a 24-year-old who can't do a job, isn't a self starter, who is terrified to take action, may not even go to college because they're too scared they're going to fail. So a lot of times teachers don't see, they see these 2, 3, 4-year-old children and they just see a small child. But what they don't realize is that you're literally forming who this child is going to be as an adult. And so for me, with my background, I see that 4-year old and I automatically see a 30-year-old and what's going
Yes.
to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I automatically know the struggles that child's going to have as a 30-year-old. I know as a 50-year-old what struggles that child's going to have. And it's really important to remember not to transfer your own self doubt onto the children. Not micromanaging is a major sign that you are very insecure. If you have that need to micromanage the children like that, there's an insecurity within you that you're transferring to them. And that's where that self confidence just doesn't come if the children aren't allowed to be free thinking.
So, is there a resource to go to that people can reach out to when they're feeling incapable, depressed, or just worn out?
So I think there is a lot of wonderful mental health resources. I would definitely look at your community because one of the bigger issues I think in this problem with imposter syndrome is it really does affect your mental health and it causes you to burn out. And I've seen a lot of people leave the fields they love, like being a teacher and going to do something. I actually had a teacher years ago who left and ended up working for a warehouse doing something that she doesn't like because
Mm.
she was so overwhelmed. So I would definitely reach out and get help because this is programming. This is literally programming that happened from early childhood. The other thing you can do though is just educate yourself. Really start looking at things, and awareness is huge. I have a podcast that deals with just mindset of being in the world of early childhood education. Listen to my podcast, listen to other people's podcasts, get books that will help you with things like this and just self confidence and start analyzing yourself. Journal when you have these different things. And that evening, when you get home, take Katie Byron's 4 questions and journal it. Journaling is one of the biggest things that you can do
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's amazing what journaling can do for you because it really does tap into your subconscious.
You know that I don't know if it was Stacy Benj that had talked about how writing in the journal every day or having a book that you looked at every day. But one of the things was about the writing of affirmations,
Yes.
and I had done that. I have these little things around the house, and I put them places where I wouldn't remember they were. So, like, if
Oh,
I was going somewhere, and then I go, oh wow, and I'd read it, and I go, huh, I like that. But now I notice that people that come to my house are finding them,
that's awesome.
and they're going, why do you have this here? And I go, did you read it? Did it make you smile? That's why I have it there. But that's important, and to do with the kids too.
Mhm.
When they see that you do little things like that, they don't feel self-conscious to do it themselves. You
Exactly.
know,
Yes.
right? So it might seem a little bit corny, but it is really helpful to
Yes.
remind yourself those things. My daughter bought one of those mirrors in her bathroom that has the words on the bottom that goes, "Hello, beautiful." So whenever you go in
Actually,
her bathroom, you see that
I
sign.
I love it. I actually I have a mirror right here in my office that I look at, and it actually I take a dry erase all the time, and I'll
Yeah,
put whatever affirmations on a dry erase on my mirrors.
that's
And
awesome. I like that.
yep, as I look just right there to my right, I look at my mirror and I have 3 promises that I've made myself this month. And so every month I do different affirmations, different, and I call them promises to myself, and I just remind myself. But mirror work too is huge. Look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I can do. Look at your eyes. I mean, I go to the down to the point where I'll close one eye and look at one eye and then look at the other, and remind yourself, you can do this. You can do amazing things when you believe in yourself.
And they might feel uncomfortable when you first start doing them. But the idea that when you do these things for yourself, you don't even realize that you are doing them in front of the children. And
Yes.
then you see the children pick them up. Like for me, one of the saddest things I ever heard was one time I was trying so hard to get the 4-year-olds to engage with me with music. And you know that I'm really like, come on,
Yeah.
everybody. And this one little boy was like, and I stopped and I asked him, I said, I want to show you what your face looks like right now. And I go, you look like this. And he said, well, maybe I'm just not having fun anymore.
Oh.
And I thought, you're 4 years old.
Yeah.
Like who took that from you?
Yes. Yes. We steal childhood from children. My first TED talk that I did, that's pretty much what it was called, Preserving the Wonder of Childhood. And
Mm,
one of the things I talked about is that we literally are stealing childhood from the children right now.
I
And
think
that's,
I watched that one.
yeah, that is exactly one of my biggest passions in life is restoring childhood. We only get to be children for about 8 years out of an average of an 84-year lifespan. And we've stolen that magic from them. And I have to challenge people, ask them why. Why are we stealing the magic of childhood, the wonder, the imagination?
Right.
Instead, we should be creating this magical world for them and empowering them to believe everything. If they want to believe in fairies, let them believe in fairies. They're only that magic is gone,
Yeah,
and that
they'll figure it out later.
exactly.
I know. Well, I want to thank you. This was a very enjoyable conversation. I would love if you could maybe put the 4 questions. Is it possible to put
I
the
can
four
do that.
questions in
Yeah.
the feed? And what might your closing comments be?
My closing comments, and I think the most powerful thing people can do is start consciously listening to your thoughts and question them. We so often aren't even aware of what we think about, right? We literally let our brain go wild and without supervision, without just, and so start getting in the habit of questioning your thoughts. And that's where those 4 questions are so powerful. And just start listening to your thoughts because as you start listening to them, there's going to be times where you're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Right.
And you can really start, and also just know that your interpretation of things is only your interpretation of things. It doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it true. So when you start questioning things more, sometimes you realize maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm really good at this. And this one incident is making me paint this picture of everything where 90% of everything else is awesome. I can't allow myself to think that I am not good enough because of one thing.
Right. Well, I think that's really good advice for everybody of all ages. And we need to just be very mindful of who we are in front of the children. And I guess part of the, like that fake it till you make it, even if maybe you are pretending in front of the children for the sake of the children, eventually you might realize you're not pretending anymore.
Yep. I tell people I actively brainwash myself all the time. When you keep telling yourself the same thing over and over, eventually you will believe it. You
That's
will get
right.
to the front and you will believe it.
Thank you. Ask you just to hang on for a minute. Everybody, Evelyn Knight with us today, and you can see the 4 questions. She's going to put them in the feed for us. And I want to thank you. I know you are a very, very busy woman, so we appreciate you taking time for us today.
Thank you for having me, Marianne.
Oh, you're welcome.